As you know, we love our electric e-bikes, and it's all fun and games and riding around until this happens. Yeah, we got a flat tire. So in this episode, we're going to actually go ahead and change out this flat tire and show you some tips and tricks to keep you on the road riding longer. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am Dan, and the other part of Compass Rose, Kevin, is inside the trailer taking care of Ava. Right now, we are outside. We're using our clamshell because it is kind of windy, but I did want to get this video out because I need to change my flat tire on my electric e-bike. Hey, before we get started, if you're new to the channel, thank you for showing up and taking an interest. We definitely hope you subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up if you like it. So going on, there are several ways that you can actually go ahead and fix your flat tire depending on how bad it is. I'm going to show you all the different ways that you can do it and some tips, so stay tuned to the very end because I have a tip that I did not realize that makes perfect sense and you can recycle as well. So stay tuned to the end for that. But getting on, the first thing you want to do is you want to gather up your tools and you want to go ahead, find a good place that you can actually work on your electric bike and turn it upside down. Now, one thing you really want to do is when you are setting up your, or turning your bike upside down, you want to make sure that you put the display in a flat position and make sure it's covered with something that's nice and soft so it doesn't damage the display. I did the same thing to the back. I've got a cargo pad on there, or cargo box on there, but normally if you didn't have that cargo basket in there, it would be touching your seat. It would be touching your seat, so you don't want your seat actually to rub up against the ground, so put something soft underneath that. I happen to be using Ava's bed that's for outdoor use only, so she's not going to mind because she's indoors. Now, unfortunately, you got a 50-50 chance of you having a flat either on the front tire or the rear tire. I will tell you the front tire is a lot easier to replace than it is the rear tire, but fortunately for you, the rear tire is what we're going to have to replace today. Not actually replace it, I'm actually going to fix it. So this is hopefully something that you'll be able to do. This is the first time I'm doing it myself with this electric bike, and let's go through it together. The first thing that we've got is our tools. In here you can see you're going to need a hammer or a mallet. I'm going to try the mallet first before I try the hammer. You're also going to need a flathead screwdriver. You're going to need an 18mm box wrench. I don't have one, so I'm going to use this crescent wrench and that'll work fine. I do have a 10mm box wrench that I'm going to use. You need a zip tie, some wire cutters, and you need a 5mm and a 4mm Allen wrench. Plus, we're also going to use a bottle of slime. This is 8 fluid ounces. I'll explain that in a bit. And depending on the damage, we're going to go ahead, I picked up this tire tackle kit from Walmart for just a few bucks, and we'll see if we have to repair that, or if we're going to use that to repair it. Okay, so the first thing you want to do before you tip your bike upside down is you want to set your gear to 7. That's the highest setting that you can do on the electric bike X.20. And the reason you do that, hopefully we can catch that in here, is because that will put your chain on the smallest sprocket. As I was going through this is flat. I noticed, I think that is my culprit right there. It looks like a little piece of wire that's in there, staple. So let me go ahead, grab some pliers, and see if we can pull that out. Look at that. That's a little piece of wire. I don't know if you can see it well. I'm going to put it on here. But I don't know if that's the only damage that was done to the bike. Let's take a look, but let's remember exactly where that was. What I should have done is I should have marked this spot. So it came out of here. I'm going to mark this portion of the bike right here, right there. The first thing we're going to have to do is remove the tire. Now, like I said earlier, the rear tire is the hardest, but let's go step by step. Once you've turned your e-bike upside down, you want to go ahead and get on the right side of the bike, which happens to be the opposite side that the sprockets are at. It'll be the side that your kickstand is on. Let's take a closer look. Your kickstand is going to be in the way, so you want to remove that. Now let's see if we can get in here a little closer. First thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the brake caliper with a 5mm Allen wrench. You want to take it out completely. Set it aside. Next, you're going to want to make sure you've taken off that rubber cover that was on the 18mm nut, and I'm just going to use a crescent wrench because I don't have an 18mm box wrench. You've got the nut, and then there is a washer that's got two flat ends on it. Keep those together. And now this little piece is called the torque arm. We're going to remove that with a 4mm Allen key. Okay, now we're going to come to the other side of the bike. And the first thing we want to do, this is the side with the sprockets. The first thing we're going to do is disconnect the motor cable. It is a little tougher than it looks. Now, we have to be careful because we need to specify which way this was. You'll see that there's two arrows on here on each side. They're going to want to link together because these are very fragile pins. We don't want to ruin them. Next, we are going to snip the zip tie securing the motor wire. Be careful not to snip the wire itself. Okay, so now we're going to remove the rubber cap, but this cap is fixed to this motor power cord. So we're just going to loosen it up a bit, and we're going to come in here with our 18mm box wrench if you have it, or crescent wrench, and just loosen it. So I had to get a smaller crescent wrench to try to fit in here. Now let's loosen that up. They are tight. All right, now it's loose. I'd use my mallet though. These are really tight. So all we're doing now is loosening. It's not going to come all the way out. So once this is sufficiently loose, you can use your fingers and remove the derailleur guard. There we go. Let that hang there. And we should be able to move these back a little bit more if you want. Let it dangle. So now what you want to do is you want to take your nut and you want to run your nut and washer down the motor wire like that. it'll just hang on here. Okay, after we move the nut and washers down to the motor cord, we also have another torque arm that we're going to have to use a 4mm wrench with, and we're going to go ahead and just remove this torque arm as well. Now there's a lot of tension on these for safety on the wheels themselves. So after I remove the torque arm, let it rest on those. Don't lose that part. We are going to have to use our flathead screwdriver to get under here and try to loosen this up a bit. Now, may have to come to the other side, break that loose as well, very carefully. There we go. And then you should be able to just pull this right out, get it out of the sprocket and the chain, and voila, we got our wheel off. This is what we're going to work on. Now that I got my tire off, I'm going to use my handy dandy Walmart little tool kit, and I'm going to remove these fancy tire movers. There's two little plastic pieces. You can actually use screwdrivers or any kind of plastic, and what we're going to try to do is we're going to get underneath the rim and pull it over. Now we're also going to look for my spot. I don't know if you can see it in the picture, my spot right here where I made this mark. It's right at this point. Let's see, it is probably about 12 inches from the actual valve stem itself. So, but we're going to remove the entire tire because I want to demonstrate that. So let's see, I get underneath here. All I have to do is get underneath the rim at one point, just drag it around, and that side of the rim is done. And then from this point I could actually remove the tube itself, or I could take off the tire completely. Let's do that. Better demonstration. Again, I'm going to get underneath here. And I've taken this off. Now, I've got to take the valve stem cover off, which I should have done beforehand, but I didn't. That just shows you what happens when you don't do that. I'm going to set my tire off to the side. Now, it's going to be important to remember what side you had the tire on. We had it facing the gear side out on this side, and this is where I made the marking, which should be right about here. Right about here. So I had the tire turned around. So we want to make sure that we put it in the right way. Now let's take a look right underneath where the puncture wound was and see if we can actually spot where the puncture is. It should be in this area. Now if you really want to do this correctly, you would have a big tub of water that you could fill up the tire and start looking for any particular holes in it. Now I do notice that my blue line is going to be on the side that I want to install, closest to the sprocket. So it should be about here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and fill it up with air and see if I can find the puncture itself. With it flat, I couldn't find the puncture anywhere, so I had to fill it up with some air, and I still cannot find the puncture at all in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put it in a tub of water, You just have to get it deep enough so that you can get the entire tire pushed in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a little pressure on there, see if there's any bubbles that come out. Okay, I don't know if you can see in the camera. Let me see if I can get it this way. Down here, I can see some bubbles coming right up there. So let's see where that is. If you can still see it? That's my problem area right there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a permanent marker and I'm going to go ahead and mark that. Let's double check it. Yeah, it's right there. But let's go ahead and try to fix that tire. Now that I got my mark, all you've got to do is, in your toolkit, there is a little scruff piece of metal and these little scabs, slime scabs I think they're called. They pull them out. We're just going to need one of them. As you can see, these little slime scabs is what they're called. They are about the size of a nickel. So let's go back to where I marked that our problem area was. Even though you can't see it, it's so, oh, I see it in the sun right there. Just a little pinprick. Well, you saw that little staple that made it come out. So all you have to do is you roughen this area. And the reason you're doing that is you're just simply roughing it up so that you can put that slime scab on and it'll adhere nicely and stay on for you. Now, some older model kits that you may have may actually use the glue. In this case, this slime, this is made by Slime, and we're actually going to use this in our tire as well. And I'm going to show you that tip that we've got. All right, so that's there. Where's my little hole again? Right there. I'm going to take this, peel this off. And put my sticky end right there, centered over the hole. Put that on there really well. And boom, it is done. You see that? How easy that was. Now, let's go back to the water and test it out. No bubbles. No bubbles. Now what I'm going to do is, before I put the tire back on, I want to make sure that was the only puncture that I had. And it was really small. It was still maintaining air in there. But we hadn't used the electric bikes for maybe a few weeks. And so it just kind of deflated with the temperature changes because we keep it in the 4Runner folded up. All right, so I don't see any more punctures in there, so I'm going to assume that we got the actual puncture itself. Let's go back and put this back in the tire on the wheel. So now that I've gone ahead and dried off the tube, what we're going to do is we're going to put this back into the tire. And remember, we want to put the place where I marked it on the sprocket side. And this is the correct orientation. Let's go ahead, get this tube in there. If we have to deflate a little bit, we can do that. In fact, yeah, let's go ahead and do that right now, because I told you I was going to show you another tip that I had. Now I've gone ahead and deflated the inner tube. Remember, my blue side is going to be on the side closest to the sprockets. So it's going to go on like this. I'm just going to stick the inner tube and kind of evenly distribute it through the tire. Now, looking at other Facebook forums and other problems that people have had with their electric bike wheels, this is one thing I wanted to point out. Do you see this yellow strip? This is like a heavy-duty duct tape of some sort, but you want to inspect it. If you do take your inner tube off and your tire, you do want to inspect it and make sure that you've got enough of this tape that goes over these little sprockets that come out, because those can also give you a flat tire if for some reason that was damaged. So it looks like mine seems to be fine all the way through. And you know what, if yours is if your tape is damaged, all you have to do is use duct tape, and that works perfectly fine. Okay, now that I've got my inner tube in my tire sufficiently, I'm going to go ahead and drop this sprocket in, or the valve in, the valve stem. We're going to do this. All right. It's a lot easier to get this tire and rim. And you don't even need the tool to get that on there. Maybe towards the end I will. Famous last words. Yep. So I will. Now I want to make sure that my valve stem is well enough over to go into that hole. I am going to use this tool and make sure that it goes inside. Be careful not to pinch the inner tube with the tire. You want that evenly spaced. As I struggle with it, well, okay, so here we go. I've got my inner tube in. Now I need to go ahead and get that valve stem in here so it pops out. Turn a little bit, and it should come straight through. There we go. So my valve stem is straight through. Now what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to blow this up, and I will be right back. When I originally tried to research on electric bike, specifically how to remove their tires and everything, I reached out to Lectric Bike. They sent me a little video on exactly how to remove the tire, not necessarily how to fix it. But coincidentally, on their webpage and in his email, they also recommended that we use slime in our tires. So it's recommended that you use 4 ounces for each tire. So at Walmart, I picked up this slime. I'll go ahead and put a link to it down in the description, as well as the toolkit and everything else that I got. But this is an 8-ounce can or bottle of it, and we're going to go ahead and install this slime. Even if you don't have a puncture on your tire, you want to go ahead and put slime in it. That's going to give you about 2 years of preventative maintenance on it for small little nail-like punctures that I had. Mine was more like a staple, but if I would have had slime in there, it would have prevented that from actually deflating on me. So let's go ahead and try this. Now it says, the directions are easy on the back. It says position valve in the upper half of the tire. So our valve is right here. It's in the upper half. Great. Then all you have to do is slowly remove the valve core with a tool and cap. Now that's actually what I use to remove the tool to deflate the tire a little bit faster. So you take this cap, shove it in all the way, it'll snap, and then all you have to do is remove the valve stem. Okay, so that is the valve stem right there. Let me put this away for safekeeping. Step 3, allow tire to fully deflate. Yeah, we already did that. Remove object if possible. There's no object, we fixed it. Attach hose and squeeze in slime. Now there is a hose attached here. Let me go ahead and remove this. It had me remove the hose that comes with the kit right there, and you've got to remove this cover. Didn't mention that. It's very sticky. Sticky indeed. I'll put this cap back on. What I do recommend you do, cover it, and you're going to put the hose on. I'm going to slip this over here. Then we're going to remember this is positioned in the upper half, so it's got to be kind of facing up. Now it might be easier to come in from this side because I don't have all those sprockets. Let's go ahead and install the hose. Onto the valve stem, and then I'm going to install the slime to the hose. Now remember, this is an 8-ounce bottle. We're going to use half of it for this tire, so all we're going to do is we're going to squeeze in there. I do notice that they have a 4-ounce marker here, which is kind of handy. So that's when you know your first tire is done. Unfortunately, it sticks to the side. You kind of have to guess. All right, let's see what that does to balance. Okay, I think it's just under half. Okay, so I'm going to remove this. We got our slime in there. It says the next step is to reinstall the valve core. So let's go ahead and do that. Like I said, the tool to actually remove the valve core comes right on the lid of the slime, so that's kind of handy. You tighten that, I guess, as tight as you can get it, and then just pop it off. That should be good to go. Now, all I need to do is go ahead and fill this up. Electric bikes use 30 pounds per square inch of air, so let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so I inflated my tire to 30 psi. It's all good. One thing you want to do is remember to put your valve cover back on. And with the slime, you want to be able to rotate this to distribute the slime evenly. What's actually going to happen is once I've got it on there, I can just spin it around for a few minutes, and not a few minutes, but maybe 30 seconds or so, and get that all distributed, because it is a liquid form. Eventually, I guess it just gets gunky or something. So let's go ahead, put this back on the rear of the Lectric Bike XP 2.0. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert. Remember, the proper side for the spokes is going to be on the side with the motor cable. We're going to actually have to get this chain out of the way, and remember, we had set it to the highest speed, which is 7, which is the lowest gear. So we're going to get that chain wrapped around that low gear. We're going to hold this sprocket setting up a little bit. I need this motor assembly to come in here. So let me take this back out again. It needs to be on this side where I can get this over and set this in. Now, both these screws, or bolts I should say, have two flat surfaces on them. So you've got to get that one in, and then you need to come over to the other side, and this particular washer has an inset on it. We want to go ahead, make sure that the inset is on top like that, and we want to get our tire down on both ends where they belong. This is where you're going to actually be using your hammer. You want to make sure that your wheel is down all the way, in case it isn't. Just make sure that on the other side that you're able to remove the guard out of the way so you don't happen to hit that as you're tapping it through. You're just tapping it down to the very end. I've got my torque arm, but it's not turning to the exact position that it was originally. All right, that's the way it goes. We'll just tighten these up by hand. And then we're going to take the washer, 18mm nut, hand tighten them as well. Let's go back to this side. Do the same thing over here. Now that we got this in, we're going to go ahead and put this washer and this nut back onto here. Finger tight.
Ensure the nuts on either side are torqued to 40 newton meters.
40 newton meters. Okay, so where's my crescent wrench? Now all we have to do is tighten these down. Proper specifications is going to be 40 newton meters. I do not have a newton meter wrench, so I'm going to go with tightening it as hard as I can for my age and call it Dan newton meters. So because it was hard to get off, in case I ever needed to take it off again. I will just tighten it as hard as I can. All right, that's about as tight as I can get it. We got to back up a little bit because I forgot to put this derailleur guard on. What we're doing here is we're reinstalling the derailleur guard. You've got to get this in just right so that it can clear your torque arm screw that we've got. And I'm going to tighten that back up. I had loosened that up a little bit. That's the wrong one. I had loosened that up a little bit and try to figure out why it wouldn't go around it. But we're going to tighten this up now. At least finger tight. So it does move. But just be careful that once you've got this torque arm screw in, you may have a little problem with the derailleur guard. Once you've actually put on that rail guard, you can go ahead and tighten this up Yeah, if you do happen to have an 18 millimeter box wrench, it may be a little bit easier to use that. Remember, we're on the motor side right now. We're going to have to reconnect this motor cable. You've got to be careful with that. Like I said earlier, the pins on the end of the motor cable are very fragile, and you just have to use the markings of the arrows on both sides to be able to go ahead and reach them. So I've got that on about as tight as I can get it. All right, guards on there, tires on there. Looks like it's running relatively smoothly for both. Okay, I got to re-put these, remember the rubber ends? Let me put that on this end, and this is going to go back up to this end and cover that. Perfect. We are almost there, folks. Yep. All right. Now, here's the tricky part. See this arrow? See this arrow? They need to go and match ever so gently. Try to get them in there, and it should just pop right in. Good. We're going to go ahead and zip tie these up to this cable right here. Actually, we've got a little area where we could probably run this up and through and hold it in. So I'm going to do that. Not around the chain, of course, but I'll do this. We're going to use our wire cutters to snip off this end. Remember earlier we did the brake caliper? You don't want to forget that. That's going to go right back here, this back end. Finger tight. If I recall, that's the 5 millimeter one. Let's go ahead and put that in there. And we'll just tighten this out a little bit. Wouldn't want that to come out while I'm riding it. Okay, so what you want to make sure is when you've adjusted that brake caliper or put that back in, that it's not rubbing up against anything. You want to make sure that the wheel is running freely and looks straight as you're doing it. Now let's go over here. We also want to make sure that when we rotate the tires, that it spins freely. And this spinning should definitely distribute that slime well enough for us. And that's it for the back tire. Now, let's go to the front tire. The front tire is going to be so much easier. In fact, I'm just going to show you what you would have to do to take it off, because we're not going to take it off right now. But you've got two 18 millimeter bolts that you need to, or nuts that you need to loosen up, and the tire just comes out. There's no wires, there's nothing that you have to worry about, and then you just slip it back in and you fix it just like we did the rear tire. But what we're going to do, because I haven't put any slime in this tire and this is fully tired, before you put slime in you need to deflate the tire. So I'm going to deflate the tire right here on its pedestal. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use the tool that Slime gave me to go ahead and remove that valve core out. Let me find the valve stem. It's right here. Remember, remove the valve stem cover. Take the tool. All you got to do, push it all the way in. There we go. All right, so I'm deflating it. That should be good. With the valve core out, remember, you've got to keep this in the upper half of the tire rotation. So you don't want it down and filling it up with slime. You want to be able to put it up in the upper half. So let's go ahead and fill this up. I'll attach this to the adapter. You may have to push with your thumb on the opposite side to keep it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tip this upside down completely so we can get the rest of this slime in there. Get a few pumps. Don't forget to stick around for my tips. I got a tip that I saw. I couldn't do it on this particular repair because I still had a good inner tube. I just had to repair it. But stick around for that. Don't forget, while I'm sliming this up, maybe you want to hit that little subscribe button. That would help us out a lot. Hey, if you've taken off your tires, please let us know in the comments below. I'd like to hear your experience with this. And if you have any other tips or tricks, except for the one I'm going to be giving you in just a few minutes. Stay tuned for that. All right, I think that's about as much as I'm going to be able to get in there. There we go. Now we got to go ahead, replace that valve stem. And remove it. And now we're going to just spin this around a little bit. We're going to turn that around, and then I'm going to go ahead and fill this up with 30 pounds of pressure. So I got my RV'ers pump, which is really great. In fact, I really love this pump. It's good for all our RV tires, our car tires, and now our e-bike tires. So I'll go ahead and put a link to that down in the description below. Let me go ahead, set this on. Tighten that up. Blow this thing up to 30 psi as well. There we go. That's 30. All right, classic mistake. When I was doing this, I didn't ensure that the tire rim itself was always in the metal rim assembly. So I've got to go back and use my little tire tool. Go back in here and tighten it up where it's in there. Oops. And I may have to deflate it more. So let me go ahead and deflate it more. And I'll have to reinflate it. So now that I got the right pressure put in the tire, I just want to spin it again, let it go. Remember, this was kind of maintenance free because I didn't have to take anything out except for the valve stem core, and that I wish the damage would have happened on this tire, but because the rear is so complex, kind of glad I did that so I could actually do a video on it. And even though I hate doing that kind of work, at least I know I can do it, and I'm sure you can as well. So that's about it. All I got to do is turn the bike back over and I can start riding it. If you have any questions about your e-bike, you can check out our other e-bike reviews above. We did one that was our first initial one after we've had it for about 2 months, and then I also did another video. I'll put that in the card up up above, and that was about different modifications that I didn't even know until I started really getting into it and reading it, and the different position settings you can set. So you might want to check that video out. That's kind of a cool video. And here's that special bonus tip I told you about in the beginning of the video. This is something that I ran across that I thought was very ingenious, and I thought, well, that would be great to use. But I didn't do it on this particular bike because I didn't have a bad inner tube. If you happen to have an inner tube that you have to replace because it's got a long stretch of scratch or hole in it, don't throw that away. Okay? Because what you're going to do is, if you replace it with a brand new inner tube, you can actually cut down the center of the inner tube along the side. Just cut it all along the side of the inner tube. This is the tire, I'm just demonstrating this. And then what you can do is you can wrap that around your new inner tube. That gives you double protection. I thought that was a great idea to recycle your old inner tube tire and be able to use it to double protect your tire that's in your e-bike. So that is your bonus tip. So anyways, I hope you got some value out of this video. It took all day to do it. Now, a lot of that had to do with the camera and setting up the video and everything. I would say if you're going to do one tire, the rear tire itself, set yourself aside 45 minutes to an hour to do it yourself in the right situation, as long as you got all the tools and everything. The front tire is really simple. That shouldn't take you more than 15 minutes or so. But if you did actually find this video informational at all, go ahead, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We'd really like you on our crew. And also hit that bell notification icon down there, and that'll tell you when we have another video that comes out. Until next time, where will the road take you?
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic lights.